Where in the world are you,
I
Benjamin?
am in Hamilton, Ontario, so I'm just about 2 hours outside of Toronto, Canada. So yeah, we're in the north.
On
Where
you
are
said
you?
Ontario?
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
Ontario, Canada.
2 hours outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I haven't been to Canada yet, man. That's awesome.
True.
That's
Where are you from?
so right now I'm in Texas. I'm in
Texas.
a place in Texas. Yeah, little state called Texas down here in the States.
Oh yeah,
And
familiar. Very familiar with it. Yeah.
yeah, so that's where I'm at currently. I'm from South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina region.
Oh,
But
very nice.
um, but yeah, brother Julian is in here. He's asking you, Ben. He's
Yeah.
asking without liquid. So he's wondering about your dry fast. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's inspired you and what, you
Sure.
know, what you're looking forward to for yourself?
Sure. Sure, yeah. So my plan for my dry fast, Julian and everybody else, is just to pull all the food back, all the water back, right, to allow the body to heal deeply. So I've been beating around the bush, so to speak, with this for a little while. I've done a few 2 day, 3 day fasts, and I've had a fungal infection on my skin that just I'm trying not to resist it or push it away because I know sometimes that could, like an aversion to things, could actually make them stick around, right? So I'm working on just, I know the deepest healing will commence with the dry fast. So basically, I'm looking forward to a bit of spirit. Like I just love spiritual stuff. So I know some of that could potentially crop up. And just taking a break from food just allows the body to heal properly, right? By itself with its own mechanisms. So that's kind of what I'm inspired to do this particular fast for. And and recently, like I just stumbled upon all this stuff again. Like years ago, I was vegan, and just coming back to almost full circle in some way. So, I'm not there yet again, but the fasting, definitely, I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued by the stuff you're doing, like just living on less. I don't know to what degree you like how often you quote unquote eat or whatnot. Not that any of that matters, but yeah, just inspired by it all, brother. So
Blessings, brother. You
yeah.
know, it's a pleasure. It's a blessing to inspire and to be inspired.
Mm,
You know, I'm still inspired daily by so many people. Yeah, full disclosure, I live on liquids.
okay.
So I live a liquid lifestyle. I'm actually out here at HEB. This is the local grocery store out here. So every day I walk 5 miles. I do a video right here before I go in and grab my juice, and then I just go
Beautiful.
back to my apartment.
Nice.
So I've been on juices, teas, coconut waters, just liquids for the last 2 years now, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. So since May of 2022, I've been on liquids, no solid food for over 2 years now. But it's become like a lifestyle. It's become, I don't call it fasting anymore. We call it pranic living.
Yeah.
So it's the energy that's giving is pranic living.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
I'd love to learn more because, man, like when you're talking about fungal infection, I've dealt with these things as well. So,
Mm.
to what degree is this fungal infection? Like, how long have you been dealing with it?
Oh gosh. So I suspect I've had it for probably 8 months to a year. So I didn't notice. So it started off with some ringworm on my chest, right? So little like tinea, it's like little red circles, right? And I thought maybe it was sunspots at first because it's just like a hyperpigmentation of the skin. And then it started getting red. And then I started getting jock itch, which is like the same thing, just on the groin, so just a less convenient area, right? And I've had that for probably around the same duration of time, and it got worse for a while because I fell off the wagon with my healthy eating and just started eating a bunch of junk food. And anyways, uh, I tried a lot of stuff, tried the diet. Like, ironically, doing like a low carb approach did seem to put it, because apparently fungus thrives on sugar, which I don't know how true that is, right? So I did get some remission with the low carb eating, but for me, that's not sustainable to like our body. I know, like the whole breatharian thing, like our body, technically needs some carbs. It's whatever, right? But So I've been experimenting with a lot of stuff, needless to say, and found like all the topical creams didn't work. Urine, so I've done some urine therapy. I found that did benefit it. I've done some fasting on Orina, and that seemed to have some benefit, like especially the die off. Like I started getting crazy itchy, so I know that it was potentially doing something. But basically it's nothing's really getting it, like taking the last bit off, right? Like I'm still having some spots. I got a spot show up on my face the other day, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this is time to bring out the heavy guns, right? So that's why I figured dry fasting was like, urine fasting's powerful, but I think dry fasting is like just pure pranic, right, state is probably the most powerful. So
Yeah, you know, when I think of like liquid, like feasting or liquid fasting, or you know, flushing the body out with water,
yeah.
I feel like it's like hosing down the walls of like I imagine like a pressure washer in a sewer. You're like hosing things down and you're like pressure washing things out. You're blowing things out and you're flushing things out. But then with dry fasting, I imagine like a furnace that just heats up. It just burns everything. Like everything just gets burned.
Yeah.
You know, it just burns it all up, and it's like nothing can remain that is not self-sustained, you know.
Mm.
So everything must, it's like you ever been to those clearance sales at those thrift stores? Like a thrift store will sometimes have a clearance sale, like maybe a furniture store or some store that's going out of business, right?
Sure.
And they'll have a sign, a big old sign, like
Mm.
clearance, and it'll say everything must go.
Got you. That's dry fasting.
That's
Yeah.
dry fasting. That's dry fasting. Everything must go. Like
You're
we gotta get
right.
it out. We gotta get it out of here,
Yeah.
quick, quick. You know. So, man,
It's
I salute you.
mm. Thank you, brother, and I just appreciate you too, because seeing your content, and then there was Chris, a guy named Christo. I saw his content, and he recommended Man's Higher Consciousness, and I just couldn't. I can't un. It's like the law of exposure, right? When you see something, I'm getting goosebumps, and it just, you know it to be true, right? I'm not saying everything in that book makes sense to me, but I know at a deep level, I was like, whoa, like this is real stuff we're talking about here, right? And that just gave me the alongside some of your content, the allowed myself to go through this process, right? Of like, I don't know where I stand and where I want to live on the spec, like, you know, in terms of density as I move after this, but I'm open to it all, right? And this is just like the first path, right? Like doing a longer dry fast is something I've always been curious about. I managed to go 3 days, a little longer than 3 days, like 78 hours or whatever, but this is where it's going to get difficult, right? Because I'm not in the best, the city air isn't the best here. Like in Texas, it's pretty hot and flat, right? But at least you still probably have some decent air. You know, for your lifestyle. Where here it's like there's a lot of steel industry, so it makes it more difficult to kind of go through this process. But I think a positive mind trumps all of that, man. You know, in nature. So
Yes, yes. The
yeah.
mentality. You know, your mentality has a great effect on the reality.
Mm,
You know, the
yeah.
positivity. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I could relate to your wordsmithing, man. Like I like rhyming and lyrics and stuff, and when you're flowing, I'm just like in my mind, I'm like adding on to stuff you're saying. So it's cool, man. I think that's really unique.
Yeah, you know, it's like yeah, we each, it's like a dance, you know, like everybody that I talk with,
Yeah.
I just I love it. It's fascinating for me, but it's also nourishing. Like
Mm,
it's so encouraging, but it's also nourishing. Like this is actually food for me to learn more about yourself,
sure.
to learn more about the things that you're doing for your health, you
Mm,
know? Like you don't just help yourself, you help everyone
sure.
else, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah. Ripple
So,
effect.
man, when you're talking about Chris Manley, I remember Chris Manley. I remember talks with him. I had a couple of talks with him,
Mm,
and he's just kind of like a no. you know, no nonsense type of individual. He's a no nonsense type of guy. He's really just, he doesn't beat around the bush, like you said. He just, boom, balls to the wall, let's go.
Yeah.
We're just making it happen, you know, no excuses. Like David Goggins, like no excuses, right?
Yeah,
And
he's intense. That's what I
mhm,
gravitate towards. Like I like that softer side of people as well. And I also respect the intensity, especially coming from people of this, like people that tend to be more on the like the spiritual side. Most of them are very like their nature is a little more softer. So it was interesting. He kind of just was like, "Oh, this guy's real intense," you know. So it just that got me in the path, like in the doorway of all of this stuff, right? Or reawoken my interest in it all. So
yeah. And the book you talked about too, Benjamin,
mm,
you know, Hilton Hotema, Man's Higher Consciousness, that book changed my life, man, in so many ways.
yeah,
When I read that, like you said, you know, once something is known, it cannot be unknown. It's like once you are opened, there's like a door. It's like Pandora's box. You know, you can't shut it. It's open now. It's
yeah,
open now. The cat is out of the bag. You know, it's gone. It's over. It's gone. And
100%.
they say that curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought him back. You
Hmm.
know, so when you're curious, you learn, but when you are desperate, you discover. You know,
Yeah,
you really discover when you're desperate. So I had that desperation at the time to really know, like, what else is there? What don't I know?
sure.
And I know that there's so many things that I just don't know.
That's
And
okay.
go ahead.
I said that's okay. Life's a
Right,
long time, brother.
right. So it's all a journey. It's all a learning.
Mm,
Someone said that there are, there are known knowns, like things that you know that you
yeah.
know. Then there are known unknowns, things that you know you don't really know.
Mm,
But then there are unknown unknowns, right? Things that you don't even know, you have no idea,
yeah.
right? You don't even know you don't know this.
Yeah.
So those unknown unknowns, when I started like realize, oh wow, the rabbit hole goes deep. Oh wait, it goes deeper. Wait, it goes deeper. You know, that's
Yeah.
when I started. It just stopped me in my tracks, and it was like, okay, let's bring it let's bring it right back.
Mm,
You know, let's go
mm,
back to square one. Let's go back to the basics
yeah.
and figure this thing out. So, man, I salute you in your journey. I support you, brother.
Mm,
Benjamin, you're doing everything, you know, you're doing amazing.
thank you.
So many people, my friends and family, so many people in my, you know, my loved ones in my group of in my circle,
Yeah.
they wouldn't go a day, half a day, you know, without eating, without putting something in their body, not even not even 12 hours, you know? So for you to do, you said 7 to 9 days is your goal?
That's my goal. Basically, that's dry. I'm willing to go like as I sit here on day one. I would like to go as long as I need to kind of clean the skin up, right? And it could happen. It could happen sooner. It could happen later. But I've never broke 7 days in a fast, so I would like to hit that barrier. I've done 5, but not anything. Anything above 7 is a bonus. But I would like to go until it's until the skin is cleaned up. So if I have to transition to, you know, Orina and water, then I will. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's day one. It's easy to talk tough now, you know.
Who
So that
who have been some of your biggest inspirations? I know you mentioned Chris Manley. Who's been another person on the journey that has encouraged you or empowered you or maybe opened you up a little bit?
I was definitely yourself, like seeing your content. Just Ellie Tom, I saw him, and obviously the both of you. I like how you don't speak of it as fasting because that implies it's like a withdrawal process when really it's like they say success is subtractive. So you could cross reference that over to quote unquote fasting or not eating, like having a different type of food. You and then Nabiha, I think how I pronounce her name. I saw your content with her, and it just some of it really, man, it made sense to me. The way she spoke about the relationship we have with food. That really resonated with me because I've always used it as a tool, as an emotional tool, right? To like just fill that gap when it just never does that. It's just, and she spoke about how like when you're full of purpose, when your life is full of fulfillment, you just don't need anything, and science will never be able to explain that, you know? Like it's, I've had like meaningful, like I did some health coaching and I'm working with people and I'm just flowing, and it's just like I'll go a whole day. It's like when we were kids, think about it. We played all day. We weren't thinking about food, you know? So why can't we be that way now?
Right, right.
Right?
I've done it with video games, man.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I didn't even know I was, fasting, quote unquote, right? But
Yeah.
when I was into a video game and I was conquering a boss and I was defeating that level and I was ascending and customizing my avatar and, leveling up and acquiring loot and, getting more attributes and just all those things in those video game and that virtual reality,
Yeah.
bro, life was a non-factor. I was not thinking about this reality. You
Interesting.
know, I was not thinking about my body.
Yeah.
I hardly went to the bathroom. I hardly slept. I hardly ate. I was fasting. I just
Yeah.
kept going in. I lived in that world.
Mm.
You hear about artists like Beyonce. You hear about these celebrities and pop artists and singers and songwriters and dancers that will get into a flow state and they'll go into the studio. And she talked about going into the studio. She would be in there working on an album for 3 days, not eating or sleeping for 3 days,
Whoa.
right?
Really?
Come
I
out
didn't
of
know.
the studio, a whole album is done, just release it to the public. But she got into that flow state. She was in love. She was in passion. She was on purpose.
Mm.
She was in service to her creation, to her art, her artistry, right?
Yeah.
There's
And that's
even,
better. Yeah.
even Elitom would talk about I think there's a biblical scripture, or there's a story or a character in the Bible named Enoch. And if I'm not mistaken, this book of Enoch, it talks about how Enoch got caught up in whatever he was doing and how he
Mm.
was one of the only characters that, God took him away and just like took him straight up to heaven. He came down, I think it was either Elijah and Enoch, but they were like, these people, God just came down and just took him because he was so caught up in what he was doing. He was like, he already knew what he was. He already knew. He was just caught up in the spirit, caught up in the Holy Ghost, caught up in his activity, that he
Yeah.
wasn't worried about this vehicle in the ways that we are when we concern ourselves with consumption. So,
So
man,
true. Yeah. It's
there's.
heavy shit.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying it's heavy stuff, man. Like when you think about the pain and suffering that we inflict upon ourselves through this like overconsumption, right? And I just I have too much evidence in front of me for me to not believe what I believe now, right? And I've done like a bodybuilding cut like last year, and I was eating, man, very, very little. But this is like traditional bro bodybuilding, right? And we're talking chicken and rice. And here's what the one thing that really dawned on me. I was working out extremely hard 6 days a week and working 10 hours a day, as I'm a tradesman. So I work like a very hard, strenuous job, welding and lifting a lot of steel. My body recovery was insane. Like, and I was hungry all the time, and I was abusing stimulants. So that probably didn't help. I was abusing caffeine, but it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute, I'm eating less, but my body is performing at a level I've never seen. So that kind of started to get me down this path again. And I was like, wait a minute, right? Like, I'm like, dude, I was doing like almost 20 pull-ups in one go, right? It was just like, it was just evidence, right? It was confirmation that we need less. And yeah, it's obviously there's different levels to this, right? But it's still very it's cool to see that the body's capable of more than we can comprehend for a lot of us, right?
Bro, I love that you said that, Benjamin. Like, I love that you said that the way you said that, because just your personality, like your authenticity is so cool to like just have this conversation.
Yeah.
Our body is capable capable of anything, you
Yeah.
know? When we think about the body, I mean, look, I'm here at the grocery store, right? I'm here, right? I go inside, Ben. I go inside the grocery store. I see evidence everywhere I look of the amazing capabilities of the body. Amazing, amazing capabilities. We are amazing, like
Totally.
astounding, astonishing what we
Mm.
are able to do with this body, and we take it for granted. You see those people, have you ever seen those people? And my heart goes out, seriously, because I've read books about this consciousness. I've seen TV shows, you know, and we've seen things like where you'll go and you'll see these people, they have these electric chairs for people who
Yeah.
they they, they can't really walk like that, you know? Like the cane is not gonna do it. They need the chair to, with the cart, the shopping cart with the chair to push them around to like get to the items in the middle of the aisles. And you'll witness them. My heart goes out because I witnessed them putting things in the basket that are pretty much keeping them in the chair,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah. I know
keeping
you're
them
talking.
in that state where we call it overweight. I read a book called Hunger by a lady, oh, what was her name? Roxane Gay. Roxane Gay, she wrote a book called Hunger. It was a memoir
Mm.
of her body, a memoir
Oh.
of her body. It's called Hunger. And this lady was 570 something pounds. She made it to 570 something. So her body mass index, her BMI was like over 60. So they have what we look at as overweight. Then we have obese.
Yeah.
Then we have morbidly obese. And then we have something they call super morbidly obese. She was in the super morbidly obese area.
Yeah.
And that's that's an acknowledgement of our body's capability. If we can stretch to that capacity and still be alive,
It's incredible, man.
we're still alive.
Yeah.
The body
Yeah.
is still functioning, maybe not at optimum levels,
Sure.
but it's still trying to keep you in homeostasis. It's trying to keep your pH levels balanced.
Yeah.
It's trying to keep everything working. It's trying to keep you alive. And you're
Sure.
still alive.
Yeah, it's a survival vessel. Speaking of that, I just remembered Trevor. Trevor is a big influence as well. So he just seeing what he's done that influenced me. But it's a survival vessel. Like, yeah, dude, we have that in Canada. So I'm from Canada. In the grocery store, 7 to 8 out of 10 people are carrying a lot of extra weight on their frame, right? And I'm not saying that in a pessimistic way. It's just my observation, right? And then we have the people that are disabled, and you see what they're eating, and it's just like, oh boy, like there's nothing alive in that cart, right? There's nothing that has any real sustenance there, but it sucks, man, because the system makes the junk food cheap, and even then, it's still not that cheap, right? But it is cheaper than the living foods, right? And just all whole foods are. I wouldn't say it's that much more expensive because here, like if you were eating like a mixed diet, you could eat for under $10 Canadian a day, right? I've done that, right? So but it's education, right? And it's a deep thing, bro. It's like, where do you go? Would you like education's important, right? Having the right people to show like, hey, this is where at a baseline, right? Like you should kind of plan your diet and then experiment from there, right? But nothing packaged, that's for sure. Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
so if we can go that far, if we can stretch in that
Like
direction, what makes us think the body isn't capable of going in the other direction? What makes us think that we'll die if
true.
we go in the other direction? Like we
Yeah.
should be amazed that we're still alive in that direction. You know?
It is funny.
Yeah.
It's not the normal, right? Like people, I've always been a thinner guy for the most part, and people like look at me strange when I start like if I pull the food back, I get like start getting leaner in my face. It's like, well, just because the round face is the norm, you're right. People can't really wrap their heads like I did years ago. I went 40 days on just juice, and I don't know for whatever reason, bro. I was working 12-hour shifts and stuff, so maybe that kind of like it's unnatural, right? As Hautema says, to slave away like that. I just dropped copious amounts of weight. Like I just got uh, so lean so fast that I think it was too much for my body, right? Just to put such a demand on it. And I was juicing I was drinking so much juice, but it just wasn't, but I lost too much weight. And I think that's I left that comment the other day. And I think that's ultimately where I rushed it. I rushed into the process, right? Of going lower density, lighter. And you mentioned you've been on it for 2 years. So did you initially see a pretty big weight drop before it stabilized for you, or?
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Like,
Yeah.
of course, bro. And it wasn't just that I was losing the weight in my
Sure.
body, but I was losing all the waste in my body.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
the waste in my body, like the inflammation. When I look back, it's a night and day difference, you know. But that was my normal, like you said, that was my normal. You know, constipation was my normal, indigestion was my normal, upset stomach, diarrhea, all
Mm,
that stuff. I thought that was normal. I thought everybody went through. I thought that was normal, like the circle of life. This is just life, right? But
yeah.
you know, Ralph Smart. Have you ever seen Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters?
Don't think so.
Okay, he's a famous YouTuber, Infinite Waters Diving Deep. You know,
Ooh.
this guy named Ralph Smart, and he just puts out a lot of positive things. But one thing that he'll always work into every one of his talks, somehow, some way, Ralph Smart will always work in 7 day vegan challenge, 7 day vegan challenge, deep divers.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, Benjamin, you mentioned like how much junk food costs compared to how much people say healthy food costs, right?
Yeah.
And you know, somebody was like, you shouldn't be asking why does healthy food cost so much. You should be asking why does junk food, why is that so cheap? You should be asking like, why is that so cheap? He was
So,
saying, do you know the when people ask him like, well, why is it so expensive to eat healthy? Why is it so expensive? He said, do you know the price of a heart attack?
no,
Do you
man, that's
know the price of a heart attack, of a stroke?
true. True.
You know how much
It's
that's
good.
gonna
It's a good
like?
reframe.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it kind of changed my perspective, and it was like, wait, what is the cost? What is the loss? You know, like what am I? What's the real price that I'm paying for not paying?
Yeah. Pay now or pay
Right?
later, right? Like when it comes to the work you do, and uh, man, it all karma. You can't evade karma, right? Whether like karmic action is through your thoughts or your diet. And yeah, I've felt this. I'm 28, and I'm just seeing now. I'm having to do a lot of work for the work that I didn't do when I was a little bit younger. Just I really beat my body up. So it's but it regenerates, right? And technically the cells are immortal, so it's like it's okay, you know?
Bro, you're 28, Benjamin. You're so young. I had no idea. I had no idea you're 28, bro.
Yeah, long
Your
life,
whole life is ahead of you. Your whole life is
100%.
ahead of you. 28 was when I finally started learning about all this stuff. Like when I was 28, that's when I first heard the word breatharian, first heard the word liquidarian, first heard the words chronic living. I didn't know anything about this stuff before I was 28. You couldn't have told me. You couldn't have
True. You
told me,
weren't you
you
weren't
know?
ready for it yet. Yeah. Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
nothing. I knew nothing. I'm still learning. Like it never ends. It
Hmm.
never ends. But 28 was when I first started. That's when I met Ellie Tom. Later on that year, and then the next year, that's when everything started. And just like yourself, when you said that you went straight, like you kind of catapulted yourself into it. I did the same thing, and so I wouldn't advise people to do what I did. You know, I kind of slingshotted myself into the chronic state,
Yeah.
going 2 weeks dry. You know, and that
Yeah.
was, I mean, it blew me out of the every concept. See, my cell phone died. Every concept
Yeah.
that I ever thought I had about nutrition and minerals and vitamins and what I thought kept me alive and what I thought I needed to exist in this reality,
Sure.
I went, 14 days dry and it blew everything away. It was like,
Yeah.
blew everything away.
How,
Everything.
how how could it not, right?
Right.
It's like like I have some friends that are like pretty they're tapped in, but they're not like they haven't really dived into this aspect. And I mentioned to them, I'm like, yeah, I've done a couple 3 day dry fasts, and they're like, don't you die after 3 days? I'm like, bro, there's people pulling like documented 30, 40, 50 days. And then there's the people that like Ellie Tom that aren't, they're in pure pranic state all the time, like autonomy, they've reached that state. Did you come into that dry period with the intention did you set out to go that long, or did it just roll?
No, that was not even my intention. Literally, bro, I'll tell you how it happened, Ben. I don't even know
Yeah.
if I've talked about this on a live. So I was with these monks and nuns from Myanmar. They don't eat afternoon. So they already practice, like they have their breakfast and lunch and that's it.
Yeah.
They don't eat dinner. They don't
That's
eat
a Buddhist
afternoon.
thing.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
cutoff point for them.
Yeah.
And so they were all Burmese. So hanging around them, when I started to go liquid and I started to, be fasting, I would just not drink afternoon. So they didn't eat afternoon. So I just would drink in the morning and then not have anything afternoon. So I would
Mm.
have my tea and my juice before 12. And then afterwards, I'd be dry until the next day, until the
Sure.
next morning. Slowly, my body started to adapt to this routine and this regimen and these rituals. And then, like, my sleep quota started to go down. I started waking up in the wee hours of the morning. It was still dark outside. Like the rooster hadn't even crowed yet, and I was up and ready to go. My body, my battery was at full 100%, ready to go, and the sun had not come up. I was like, what is going on? I cannot be up right now. I'm never up at this hour. What is going on in my body? Then I started, when I was going into that pranic retreat, after going so long with just drinking before noon,
Mm.
my body was just kind of letting me know, hey, you know, we can actually go further than this. Like it was just kind of letting me know in a subtle way that actually the liquids that you have in the morning for breakfast, that's actually unnecessary. You don't really even need all that. Like you can actually have less and we can be okay. We'll be all right if you have less. So I was
Sure.
like, okay, let's have less than that. And then it got to the point where I was just kind of going into, well, let me see if I do 1 day dry. And then I did 1 day dry and wow, I feel good. Okay. Okay, if I feel good tomorrow, I was bargaining with my body, right? If I feel good tomorrow, I'll keep going. Then I said, okay, if I feel good tomorrow, I'll keep going. Okay,
Mm.
man, I'm out in nature. Nature feels different, right? The sun feels different. The air feels different. My body feels, the grass feels different. If I feel good tomorrow, I'll keep going. Wow, I'm
I love it.
smelling new things I've never smelled before. My olfactory senses are opening up. I feel like an animal. Like, what is this? This superhuman? Like, what's happening? If I feel good tomorrow, I'll keep going, right? And it just that's what happened. Then by the time I went into the retreat, I'll send you the video because I documented it. When I was
Yeah.
5 days dry, I'll send you the video of where my mind state was at because I put it on YouTube. By the time
Okay.
I went into the retreat with Eli Tom, it was off to the races.
Wow.
I went in dry, I came out dry. My
Whew.
life was never the same.
How could it be?
Never
Yeah.
the same, brother. Never the same.
Wow.
Never
You
the same.
you
Yeah.
mentioned you mentioned there like your sensory state changes, right? You do start to notice that there's thickness to the air, right? Like even 3 days in, I began to notice like, oh, like especially in the morning and the night there, you're walking and it's just like the air is heavy. It's heavy, right? And it's your body's like pulling, right? Pulling, like you mentioned, pulling from the sun, right?
Yeah.
It's freaking
Yeah.
cool,
The
man.
air feels like an ocean. It feels like an ocean. Like the air feels like water, you
Mm,
know? And I would run my hand through the air and it was like, wow, you know? Like
oof.
I thought it was just air. It's not just it. Like there's moisture everywhere. We
Yeah.
couldn't survive without it. They say our lungs would literally combust if there was no moisture in the air. So there's water in the air, you
Yeah,
know, and the
and that's what we
body
get.
can absorb that. Yeah.
Totally. How else could we pull through a dry period, right? And it's I think people in general, like this kind of stuff isn't, not everyone's ready to hear it, right? And we all hear it at different times, right? Like it's cool. It's, I mean, how I could hear this and not be interested in it, but I hear it and I am. So I know it's something I need to explore, right? It's just like, let the ego, just let it, like the ego is just, it could stop you from, exploring, finding yourself, right? It's that's crazy that you didn't plan it. It just turned into that. And that's probably why it was so successful for you. You didn't have this idea of the outcome and what you're doing. You just, one day, I'm going to remember that during this fast.
Yeah, man. Because usually when I have, in the past, whenever I've had an idea of an outcome or when I think things should go, it
Mm-hmm.
usually goes completely different, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they say, when man makes plans, God laughs. You've ever heard of that?
Yep. That,
God
yeah.
laughs, so it's like,
Buddy. Yeah.
you
God.
thought, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Cool.
that usually has happened. I mean, I went to California for acting. You know, I got my bachelor's in theater arts, so that's why I went to California in the first place. And then I came out, and this is my life now. You know, so
Beautiful.
I had plans, right? But
True.
the universe had other plans. Yeah,
Amazing. Yeah, and that's the cool thing. It's there's societal beliefs of what we need to be and do to be happy, right? And then, like you said, God sometimes has a different idea, right? And puts you in divine alignment, so to speak, right? So and I could see that, man. I could see that with the passion you carry with your content. It's not forced, right? It's just like, it's straight from the ether comes in, and then you're the vessel, right? And it's, yeah, man. It's
man,
good,
that's
good
thank you
stuff.
for that reflection, bro. You know, I was telling the Biha the other day, I could do this for the rest of my life, you know. Seriously. And that was another thing that Ralph Smart said a long time ago, I remember, because he's been doing like a video a day for years.
Wow.
And, you know, he said, if whatever you're doing, if you don't see yourself doing that, like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, then stop doing that. Like, that's not your purpose. If you can't see yourself doing this in the future, what you're doing right now, then maybe that's not your purpose. And so I thought about that, and I was like, well,
Totally.
what would I do if money didn't matter, you know, if judgment didn't matter, if
Sure.
criticism didn't matter, but like, what would I do, you know, if none of that mattered? What would feel most fulfilling and purposeful for me? And it's this, what we're doing right here, you and I right
Yeah.
here, you and
Yeah.
I, Ben, like you and
Yeah.
me. This is it. This is what I would do. If I could only do this for the rest of my life, I'm happy, bro.
Sure. What
You
more
know?
do you need, man? Yeah. Yeah. I love this kind of
Literally.
stuff too. Just connection to two beings, like
Yeah.
bouncing ideas. And I mean, they say, like, when a child's born, right? After its needs are met with like mom's milk, it immediately, and it starts to understand language. It wants to hear a story, right? And we're constantly sharing stories, and it's a form of food, right? And talking about this stuff it's because maybe this inspires, like, because maybe one of my followers sees this and they're like, oh wow, this is, right, the ripple effect, right? And man, and life is just a big game. Like, like you said, we were talking about video games, right? You just kind of figure out what you want to spend your time doing, because it's a long time, you know. So
And the time will pass by anyway. That was one of the biggest revelations for me, brother. That whether I
oh,
do it or not, you
time's
know,
gonna go by.
whether I
Mm.
do it or not, whether I make it happen or not, whether I believe in myself or don't, time's gonna, you know, a year from now, a year will have passed, right?
Regardless, yeah.
Regardless,
Mm.
it's not waiting, you know?
Yeah,
So why am I waiting? Because it's not
true,
waiting.
true
Yeah.
enough. It's good, very good point, man. You come to some really cool I guess like, do you find that that stuff comes to you a little more clearly when you're at a lower density state? Like you're just more naturally rooted in your spirituality, or?
It's interesting that you say that. You know, I never even thought about that. I heard, you know, my brother Trevor, fasting with Trevor, he talked about that. He said that when he's in a less inflammatory state, he calls it, he feels
Yeah.
he's naturally more authentic in a less inflammatory state. And I thought about that. I was like, wow, I never heard that before, you know?
Hmm.
But I do feel more myself in this state. Like, as you can see, I've been walking back and forth this whole time. I can't stop.
I
You
love it.
know, the energy is constantly moving. The energy is constantly grooving. It's like it's always online. So I do
Mhm.
feel more myself. And when I'm less dense, when I'm lighter, I do feel more creative. I do feel more abundant. I do feel naturally more geared towards the things that I enjoy that actually feed me. Like you said, this conversation cuisine,
Yeah.
you know, the divine dining of dialogue
Mm.
is natural.
For sure. For sure. I can relate too, man, to on many levels to that. Just being in a state when I was doing that bodybuilding stuff, I just remember just the smallest thing like would just choke me up, right? I would just get it was like whoa, with just the littlest thing would like these ideas would come to my mind, or just seeing a bird land on my car and look at me for a minute. We just share that moment, and it would just like my eyes would well up with tears, and it's like this is our state, right? When we're not numbed out by too much, whatever that may be, right? So it's good stuff, man.
Yeah, bro. Like right before you go, man, could you
Yeah,
tell somebody that if this is their first time seeing you and they
yeah.
just want to know more about you, your journey, or maybe they want to connect with you and, you know, have a one-on-one or
Mm.
maybe get some of your offerings, your services, anything that you have available, where should people go to find that, you know?
Um, so they can just check me out on my YouTube is Saunders Strong, and my Instagram same thing, Saunders Strong. And right now I'm just figuring life out. Like I still do some health coaching and stuff, but I'm not really trying to make money. I'm just exploring, man. And figuring out what the next steps in life are, right? And they say as you're walking down the path, the light is revealed. The next step, revealing the next step. Butchered that a little bit, but you know what I mean.
I
So
love it, man. A
yeah, man.
student of life. A student of
Yes.
life.
Thanks for having me on too, brother. I really appreciate that, and yeah, big inspired by you a lot, man.
Awesome. Awesome, brother.
Okay.
You do the same. You do the same. Take care.
Okay. Peace out, bro.
All right. Peace.
Ciao.